about to get your thoughts on that. So I know it's a lot. So.
The first 2 points about the ice cream, that's great, we'll do that. Then the point about before the masculine and femininity.
Being unashamedly.
Many of us, and I can't speak for Susan, but I can speak for myself. When I grew up in the United States, I was born there. I come from an Egyptian background, but my parents emigrated before I was born. I grew up mostly in the United States, New York, New Jersey. You have York and Jersey, we have the new ones over there. And I almost kind of lived a double life. So kind of the life in the masjid and in the Muslim circles versus the life I would have at school with friends and things like that. And many parents, probably in this room, even will get upset when they see that the children are more engaging with their non-Muslim friends. And it becomes a cause for worry, as it probably should. But we have to think about why that's happening, and not just be offended by it happening. Every human being has very basic social, emotional needs. And one of the most basic of those is to feel seen and to belong, to be understood, and to feel seen. Other people appreciate you and see you, and that you belong. If we don't provide that in our environments, not likely, they 100% will go somewhere else. 100% they'll go somewhere else. So if we find this as a phenomenon, that there's less interest from our youth in attending Jama'ah, attending the masjid or the halaqat or the things that are going on, honestly, it's not their fault. That's what I believe. You may disagree with me, but it's not their fault. It's our fault. Because we're not understanding them. We're not speaking the same language that they speak. You may have grown up speaking Arabic or speaking Punjabi or speaking Urdu, but for all these kids, that's not their first language. And I'm not just talking about the language. I'm talking about لغة الخطاب, as we say, that actually the way that we speak to them, the ideas that we talk about, the way that we present them is different. The expectations we may have in response to things that we say to them, which may be unrealistic expectations, given that they were born here and grew up here and interacted with everything around here. And so that's what I meant, like the Ghawth, the people of Allah, they know all that. They make accommodation for that. And not by some master strategic plan, it's meaning in their heart, they know this person is different. I have to speak to them in a manner that reaches their heart. Speak to them in a manner that reaches their heart, and that's what we owe the youth. And if we can do that, they can stop living double life. They can stop living the type of life they have inside here when they're in the Quran circle, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? You're nodding, I saw you. Versus the life that they live outside. It could be one. It could be one. One how? Like Mosaad was saying, unashamedly Muslim means I am Muslim. And I believe in Allah. And I also believe in your humanity. And your existence as a non-Muslim, your presence, is not offensive to me. We want to build our brothers and our young brothers and sisters to be strong, so that they affect others, not they are affected by others. That is the goal. They are strong enough, they start to affect the other children that they are around, by their honesty, by their sincerity, by their caring, by their listening. That means, also, they may be exposed to the issues and problems of the people outside. But that's inevitable. It's inevitable, you cannot avoid it. This is the third lecture I'm going to say the same metaphor. You know, it's like we have our children, we throw them into the ocean, and we're so worried that they're going to drown. So our immediate instinct is, what if we can drain the ocean of all the water? And there's no more water, then they'll be fine. That's impossible. Well, what can we do? Teach them how to swim. Teach them how to navigate the ocean. Teach them how to swim. Because when they're all the way over in the ocean, and I can't swim, I can't get to them. I can't navigate what they're doing over there. They have to know how to swim. They have to know how to navigate modernity. They have to know how to navigate all of these issues from a place not just of iman, but of ihsan. And thinking about the plight of the other. And how can I get these meanings for them to see it? All these people out there, honestly, I think they're victims. They may cause you offense in some of the things that they do, rightly so. But at the end of the day, they don't know any better. Who told them another way? What do they see? What have they been exposed to? Who have they listened to? What have they heard? They're falling under the sheer brute force of modern life. And that's what it produces. We, alhamdulillah, at least we have the deen. At least we have Allah. At least we have the Prophet ﷺ. Can you imagine what your life would be like without that? Would you want to live it? I wouldn't. What type of life is that? That's the life they're living. So we should look upon them with ishfaq, with compassion, right? With empathy, with sympathy, and help them get out of the horrible situation that they find themselves in. So we need to teach our children that. I was taught from a young age, oh no, non-Muslims, don't go hang out with them, don't be friends with them, stay away from them, stay within this. But honestly, I scratch my head, I'm like, I spend most of my waking hours with them. How do you expect me to do that? Maybe in this community you have the public schools are mostly Muslim, likely, and things like that, but in some places that's not the case. You have no choice, and you always have to deal with them. So how can I do that? So rather than showing me how to swim, I was merely told, don't go in the ocean. But it's like the proverb that says, they tie your hands and then they throw you into the water and say, don't get wet. I gotta get wet, how am I not gonna get wet? It's all around me. So we have to provide the way we understand. We have to provide the narrative about these things before the kids hear. And now in the days of YouTube and TikTok and all these things, they don't have to be outside. They'll be in your home. It's all there. They could be watching a Premier League match and then on the YouTube, and then an advertisement comes for something completely different that you don't want in your house. Unaware to you. I've seen it with my own eyes. What can you do? You have to show them how to navigate. That's not right, that's haram. Some people do that, but their heart is not in the right place. Let's pray for them, that Allah guides them. We have something better. We have something more beautiful. We have something Allah gave us. We should be grateful that we have it. And we want those people to have it too. But let's be grateful for what we have first, and then maybe we can bring it to them.
I think just very quickly, we had this discussion with Mike a while back, where you were talking about certain figures that take the mantle of leading the way for young men in particular. And so we sort of went from being an apologetic community to being unshamedly Muslim to now quite shamelessly. We've lost our hayat as well in that process. And I think, there's a time and place for all of that. And another friend of mine, we were talking about, is a sort of fellow graduate, and I said to him, why do you think that many from sort of our circles don't find any attraction in these places? But we actually found it more with the Sufis, and we found it more with the people that told us about love rather than hate. And he said it's because we had, as young men, we had men over us. When I think about Shaykh Mosaad, for example, the founder of Jabal Karam, and we grew up with stories of his family and him sleeping in the classroom because they couldn't heat the madrasa. It's the sort of struggle. And he didn't have to go through that. He was a very popular imam, but he went through a sacrifice, and those stories stick with you because you can see the sacrifices that the Rijal give. I remember in 2014, I was sat in the house of one of our teachers, Shaykh Mahmoud Dahla, and we were reading to him, and it was just me and a couple of our friends. And at this time, his family was still in Syria, and they had been there for 5 years. And I remember we started to upload his Kitab al-Ikhtiyar classes onto the internet. And he said to me, my wife she watches every single second of my videos. Mushtaqali, he said that she's missing me. And I said, Shaykh, how long has it been since you saw? He goes, I haven't seen my 5 daughters for 5 years. That's what he said. 5 years. And then he literally, I remember he had the book in front of him and he literally went, now. And he just carried on reading the book. And that level of strength, as a young man, that to see that strength in the rijal, then everybody else is just, as I say, overcompensating for something that they're deeply worried about within themselves, fades away because you saw real rijal. You saw real men sacrificed their men for this religion. Your mashayikh, those are the people that spent their entire nights standing. Those are the people that spent their entire days murabitun, sacrificed for the Prophet. Those are rijal. You don't need anybody else on TikTok and Facebook. Rijal, and I think the inqita' from that tradition of Ahlullah, of the men of Allah, has been the biggest destruction. And we have certain groups to thank for that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them and us. But the greatest tradition that we ever had was the tradition of Ahlullah that came down, as the Shaykh mentioned today. And so I think, if there was a single thing that I thought that I would hope from my own children, is that I would take them to Ahlullah if I wasn't able to be that. But I would take them to Ahlullah and I would say, look son, هذا رجل من رجال الله. هذا رجل من رجال الله. And I would hope that would be enough for them as it was enough for us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for taysir al-tawfiq.
So just a question from one of the sisters. As Muslims, we have days where our iman is low. How do we not lose the sight of Allah during this time? Also, thank you for your time. May Allah bless you.
Everybody has days where they feel like their iman is low. But it's not really that. You may think it's that. It's something that the ulama called al-qabd wal-mast. So qabd means like a constriction of the heart. And mast means like an expansion of the heart. Verse mentioned in the Quran. Allah gives constriction and expansion, but to whom you are returning. That's the important part at the end. So, just like the weather here in the UK, very unpredictable. Some day rain, some day sun, sometimes the same day, rain and sun and things like that. These things that come to our heart, look upon them as visitors, as Mawlana Jalaluddin Rumi said in one of his poems, the guest or the visitor. So, what happens when you have a guest? He comes, he stays, you feed him something, gives him some tea, chai or coffee, but then they leave. So, when you have these lows, also when you have these highs, the important thing is to have the proper adab with it. And know that it's a guest. And know that it's not going to be forever. And know that when the guest brings in something and gives you constriction, qabd, that's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah, He says, He's the one who gave you the qabd. Maybe for a hikmah, maybe for a reason, maybe for you to contemplate or meditate upon something, whatever it may be. But know that the feeling itself is a guest and is leaving. So don't let the presence of that guest, however unwelcome they may be, do not give the guest the proper diyafa. Give the guest hospitality. So be hospitable to the guest that's unwanted by still giving them the right and know that they're going to leave. And also the guest that is wanted, that comes, know that guest is also leaving as well. They're not going to stay forever. So the proper adab and comportment and etiquette with that, give them the right and know they're also leaving. And know when they leave, don't become upset when they leave. Because they're always meant to be a guest. And know that the other guest that you didn't like so much is probably coming back sometime or another. So treat each guest in the way that they should be treated. Give them hospitality. But maintain your focus on the one who sent the guest to begin with. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So we'll just try and keep this one brief. How can we teach our children, particularly our teens, to navigate screens, social media, and not to waste their time? Tough question, that one. 2 minutes.
Okay, here's the answer in 90 seconds. Whatever you're doing now, it's not going to work. Whatever that person is doing now, it's not going to work. Because you can't tell them stop using it unless you give them something else to do. This is the main problem. They have faragh, right? They have empty free time. And yes, modern life and its dictates is that before people had to walk long distances and had to go get their water and had to go wash their clothes somewhere, and then invariably when they're walking, they walk by their uncle's house, they go into their uncle's. You all grew up like that. The older people were in your countries where you came. We know some of that. And us who visit, we know how that works. That may not work here. So you have to offer them healthy alternatives. I don't know what all those alternatives are, to be honest with you. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for adults. So you have to begin with yourself. If you have a problem with the phone and the social media and always a distraction, and when your child is talking to you and you're scrolling on your phone, sorry, you are the problem. Because they see you do it. What do you expect them to do? They're going to do like what you do. So you have to, introduce a new way in your house. You have to offer them alternatives that maybe you can do with them, that you can do together. And that takes a community. It's not going to be one person. You need to all think about it together. And then, if our hearts are one, like we said before, these are one of those issues, Allah will give the solution to you, inshallah. Allah ta'ala,
just like once again to thank Shaykh Walead for blessing us with his presence. We've been very, very honoured. We've benefited hugely. And I'm sure I speak on everybody when I say that. Jazakallah khair. Ahsan al-jazaa. We wish you well in your family, in your safar. Inshallah ta'ala. We hope that you continue to pray for us in your safar, inshallah. We'd ask you to make a closing dua, inshallah.
And do visit us again, inshallah, when you visit.
ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا هب لنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا يا الله يا الله يا الله يا أسماء الله وصفات الله وأنبياء الله ورسل الله والصالحين من عباد الله واقض حوائجنا الظاهرة وباطنة وأرنا الحق حقا واتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا واجتنابه وارزقنا حسن الخاتمة ونصر الطائفة والقريب وبشر المؤمنين إنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك ذلك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة لك الحمد إذا رضيت ولك الحمد بعد القضاء ولك الحمد بعد الرضا ولك الحمد الذي نقول ولك الحمد الذي تكون ولك الحمد خير مما نقول ولك الحمد على كل حال اللهم يا عالم السر منا لا تهتك الستر عنا وعافنا واعف عنا وكنا حيث كنا وأيقظ قلوبنا لك ونبهنا من غفلتنا وأيقظ قلوبنا لك ونبهنا من غفلتنا واجعل آخر كلامنا لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله عدد كمال الله وكما يليق بكماله سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين